Welcome to the weekly movie and TV roundup. I don't feel comfortable calling myself the busiest movie nerd on the internet yet. Regardless, this video series is obviously directly inspired by Anthony Fantano's weekly track Roundup for new songs, but we're talking about movies and TV over here. So we got 33 movies and shows that dropped over the last 3 weeks. Going forward, I will try to actually do these weekly, but hey, you get a super stuffed episode for, I guess, the inaugural one. Link below are also all the trailers for everything I'm going to be talking about today. Shout out to my weekly show, The Quiet on Set podcast, where I've actually talked about a bunch of these movies and TV shows before. Some might have even gotten a spoiler review already, so go check that out if you'd like. But without further ado, let's get to it. The worst, the best, and everything in between that the moving pictures had to offer over the last couple of weeks. So I'm no one-take wonder, as you might have been able to tell. I don't know how Fantano does it to mostly do these in one take. But Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, was rather disappointing. I remember growing up with the original series, the original 4 movies as well, reading the books. I haven't read this latest one, only listened about halfway through the audiobook. And it just didn't really grab me. It just felt like a fan fiction. It kind of jumbles the third act by quite a bit, and everything leading up, I wasn't really interested, so that's a big old skip it. One of the worst films of the last couple of weeks. Then Next Goal Wins. Taika Waititi adapts this, I guess, true story that initially had a documentary made in 2014. I definitely recommend that one over the mess that is this movie. It tries to be an inspirational sports story, but ends up really disrespecting everyone who was involved. No one has any character. I couldn't tell you a name or a characteristic of any of the characters that were on the field, and that's kind of what you want out of a sports movie. It doesn't deliver. It shoehorns Waititi into the actual movie when he doesn't need to be there, and it just feels like a big misstep. And I didn't really laugh that much. Manodrome, Toxic Masculinity. It's a very cringy movie that obviously is intended to be cringe. It wants to depict kind of the slow or rather fast descent into misogyny and inceldom and a self-destructive circle that's just propelled by the burdens that you have to face as a modern man and that are kind of burdened upon your back by society. And it tackles all of these big topics, but it never really gets to do them properly. It's a big mess. And I mean, I don't know if this is a fan-made poster, but even the poster looks kind of off. This movie is a bit of a miss. Wish. I think Disney wishes to at least have one movie other than Guardians of the Galaxy 3 that is actually making money at the box office. This is another $200 million budgeted film that just doesn't show why it had to cost that much. It's a big old nostalgia fest, doesn't have any good songs, an intriguing story, intriguing characters, nothing. It's just a big old mess and it is perfectly representing where Disney is at the moment. Freelance, now speaking of uninspired, they saw The Lost City of X or whatever, The Lost City from last year with Sandra Bullock. That did crazy numbers, so another studio tries to replicate what they had there with Alison Brie and John Cena. It's just that they don't really have any chemistry. It's not really funny, and it's about a dictator that's actually kind of a good dictator. And a movie like this that's really out there needs to be funny to kind of justify why it's just like bland action, shoot, bang, bang joke. It doesn't land anything. The action is bland. The comedy is bland. Nothing works about this movie. Horrible film. Stay clear of it. It's a Wonderful Knife. I think this one would have been received more positively by me if it hadn't released after Totally Killer, which has a similar premise with their time travel. Here you got a separate universe, multiverses. No one feels multiverse fatigue at this point, but it's a slasher film about a killer that needs to be uncovered, but it's always clear who the killer is, so that's none of the intrigue. It's more about the characters then, and all of them I found rather boring. There's some interesting people in the cast here, like Justin Long, who gets to do really fun, crazy acting, but other than that, I think this movie isn't camp enough. It's not like self-referential enough to hold up the dagger to some of the other slasher franchises that are just better at what they do. Family Switch, Netflix movie about family switching, and there's a reference point where Ed Helms says to Jennifer Garner, oh, it's like we're 13 going on 30, and she was in that movie. That's about the peak of comedy that you can expect from this movie, and there's a body switch between a baby and a dog that looks horrendous. Brady Noon, the kid, actually does a pretty good Ed Helms impression. Other than that, I think this is another one for the holidays that you can safely skip out on. Eddie Murphy phones one in here with Candy Cane Lane, another Christmas-themed movie where there's a rivalry between neighbors in a contest about who has the best decorations. Then it goes really crazy and just becomes magical, and it's just not really funny, not really imaginative. Another very bland movie that had bigger potential, but it never really managed to capture any of that. Oh, this thing is smaller here. Hold up, technical difficulties. The Bad Guys, if you remember, I think 2 years ago in 2021, there was a movie. Now, for some reason, I think it's a Sony movie. So Sony often gives the rights to Netflix. So Netflix made a special, A Very Bad Holiday. It doesn't get the voice cast back, and any quality of the writing is also somehow lost on this one. It's another pretty lengthy short film with 40 minutes that doesn't really deliver on any of the charm that maybe The Bad Guys had, which would probably be a higher tier than this. I wouldn't put it in the worst section. I would put it in the decent section, but still, this one deserves to be here. Genie, God. I don't know when Melissa McCarthy will star in a movie where she's actually funny. I think she's doing like the middle-aged woman thing of that type of humor. I don't know. Maybe they love it. I don't know anyone who would like this type of humor. It's just really bland and boring. Yeah, another Christmas movie miss. Man, it doesn't stop with all of these Christmas releases. December 1st was crazy. They all dropped it on one day. Dashing Through the Snow with Ludacris in the lead role. And I mean, the guy can act. There are scenes in this film where two people are speaking. Sometimes even three people are talking to each other. And that's, I think, a bit too much for the filmmakers here and everyone involved. It's not good. I think the acting, the writing really makes you cringe a bunch of times, and ultimately the story is also not that captivating. Not even for the little ones. Now that's it for the worst stuff of the week. Let's have a look at The Lesson. A young writer tutors the son of a very successful and accomplished writer that had recently lost a son. The movie actually really similarly plays out to the next film I got on the list with Saltburn here, where it's basically this guy who slowly creeps into the lives of the more accomplished, the rich in a way, but here it's more intellectually, here it's just a bit more sexually, and also Saltburn is just a mess. I think it also feels like it has so much to say, and it ultimately falls like really short, and I think it's kind of empty and just like over the top for the sake of being over the top and having clip-worthy moments that can be used as gifs and memes. The Lesson actually has some solid performances. I love Julie Delpy. Richard E. Grant is great, but the story overall, it just didn't really grip me, and I don't even know if this is supposed to be a Get Out reference here in the poster, or I guess it's about the son who drowned and maybe the writing is timed him down. I don't know. This also wants to be like a big film that says something, and it doesn't really. But that's that for those two films. A biopic about Rustin. Actually quite intriguing real life story. It goes through the steps of, I guess, the typical biopic feature, but it's an important person, it's an important story to be told about the Civil Rights March and another actual person behind it that kind of got erased from history, which is something that is just repeated again and again and reflected in some films that we've gotten this year, similar to a story like Killers of the Flower Moon that puts it to the highlight. And this is yet another reminder of how history can be changed if the people writing it just feel like you shouldn't be in the history books. And for that, I think this movie is solid. The actual filmmaking behind it is rather underwhelming, but Coleman Domingo gives an incredible performance. I think it's worth seeing for that reason alone. The Old Oak, Ken Loach's last film, is about emigration, and like it says on that banner, solidarity, strength, and resistance. It's about a coal miners town that has a bunch of immigrants coming in, and there's bottled up racism and non-tolerance for people who weren't living in the community before. So it's a bunch of like xenophobia towards the people coming in. And at the center of it all, we got this old bloke who works at the Old Oak and tries to bring them together. Very heartwarming film, a bit cheesy and a bit reductive in ultimately what it's going for, but with that, it has aspirations to break down these complicated issues sometimes into something that fits into a movie narrative. If you like cheesy, then The Old Oak might be for you. Butcher's Crossing, Nicolas Cage is a buffalo hunter that is obsessed with the hunt. He just wants to stay out there and hunt. It's Nick Cage fully in this role. I didn't really take that much away from him. I'm not the biggest Western fan. I also haven't seen that many Western movies. I guess this is a movie that stars Nick Cage. If you like Nick Cage, you might like this. Other than that, it didn't really give me much. It was well made. It was well shot. It was well acted. Yes. But yeah, recently Nick Cage said he only has 3 or 4 movies back in him. I hope it's not another one of similar to these, more like Dream Scenario. Yes, among others. But this is a movie that is out and you can go watch. I bet you didn't know about this movie. Maestro. Now this one is out in theaters right now. Will be on Netflix on December 20th. It's Bradley Cooper's second film and stars himself as Leonard Bernstein, a maestro. And it's very much a different type of take on the biopic in the sense that it moves very differently, but then it kind of falls into the trappings that always come with that type of genre, that you are kind of tied to certain storytelling norms if you want to capture someone's entire life without doing it like the Jobs way, where you just do anecdotes of like 3 different moments in someone's lives. Here you really are trying to get the scope of this man's life and his impact and his relationships. And ultimately, I think, especially in the visual storytelling in the first half of this movie, this is one of the best films of the year. In the second half, if you're still interested in the characters, I think you might take away a lot from it. But I was just fascinated with the guy behind it. Might get you to read up on the guy. He has some very good quotes that I love. But go check it out. I think it's worth seeing. Thanksgiving, Eli Roth's slasher movie that already has a sequel, Green Lit, is very bloody, gory. It's for those type of slashers that rarely get made anymore, because sometimes they do need that certain type of premise with time travel, with different dimensions. Here you just got a good old slasher with grotesque kills, kind of despicable characters at the center of it all as well, and a mystery of who the killer is. And what more would you want from a slasher movie? Scrapper is out on VOD and stars Harris Dickinson as a reluctant father who slowly steps into the role of a father after his previous partner and the mother of his child passes away. The central character of this whole thing is the kid, and I think she does a really solid performance. It's heartwarming, and as you can see, it's really colorful. This isn't just the poster, the movie itself is actually really colorful. We rarely get to see that in movies set in the UK. Pretty heartwarming story. Might fill in the rather lackluster Christmas movies that we've gotten. I think this one will do the job just fine. Godzilla -1, the latest Japanese Godzilla film, returns the monster to its truest form. It's a period piece set back straight after World War II. The monster resurfaces and unleashes complete destruction on the Japanese people. And it's very much a film about the state of Japan rather than is Godzilla actually kind of a good guy and he's just misunderstood. No, here he is a complete monster and it's about coming together to defeat him. It's a different side to what we've gotten with the American movies recently, and I think it's stellar. The visuals are quite breathtaking. There are some scenes where it looks a bit stilted and it takes you out of it, but other than that, really solid movie, really solid action movie. But other than that, no complaints. Great design for the monster, great performances. It's a bit campy, but other than that, can recommend as well. And Napoleon, Ridley Scott's latest film with Joaquin Phoenix. Great controversy about this one, about the historical accuracy. I say, who cares? He just really wanted to depict this really despicable guy who can't deliver in the bedroom, so he has to unleash it on the battlefield. That's essentially the core of the film. It holds a lot of potential. I think there's a lot of comedy in here that sometimes doesn't really land when it tries to switch from serious battle scene to the comedy. Maybe it needs a bit more time. I'm also gonna check out the 4-hour or 4.5-hour long director's cut when it releases. But just for the battle scenes alone, even the ones where he fires at the pyramids. Leo, out on Netflix. I was about to say Ben Affleck, but it's Adam Sandler. And he's a lizard. And a lizard that can talk to children and give them advice. This could be horrible, but it's actually kind of heartwarming at times. Doesn't really go beyond that. It doesn't reach like Pixar heights of the animation or the storytelling and pulling at your heartstrings, but ultimately a rather charming film. A Murder at the End of the World, the first series we're gonna talk about. It's all right. It's decent. I really have to wait until more is revealed. It's a murder mystery story at the end of the world with a bunch of influential rich people. There's also AI, and I just really hope the whole conclusion to this whole story isn't AI bad, because that would be really boring, but I feel like it might as well be. But yeah, it's all right. It's definitely too long for what it's trying to go for, and I'm not really that invested in the central character. I think she doesn't really work for me at times, but hey, it's streaming on Hulu or FX, so whatever. You can go check it out if you want. Squid Game. Squid Game is back. Yes, exploitative reality TV. Nom 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 nom. We'll eat it up. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, this show is brutal. I think it does reality TV great, which makes it horrible. It makes it entertaining, really, I wouldn't say easy to watch, but easy to binge. You just want to see more. There's almost all of the episodes up. I think by the time this video goes out, the final episode will come out the day after or is already up. And yeah, it's devastating. It's not incredibly well made because it fails to introduce all of the 456 people who participate in this. But how would you do this to make it captivating? It's all right. It feels really exploitative. And what's to say? We missed the point of what Squid Game was actually trying to do. I mean, Netflix is the perfect studio streaming service to be doing that just after the writer's strike as well. Just scummy, but it's entertainment. Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Speaking of Godzilla, this is kind of a series that's in between some of the movies in the storyline, and we get to focus way more on the people, and the monsters are kind of a background in here. It's more about like studying and finding them and understanding them, and it's actually been really intriguing so far. Can recommend Apple TV Plus. Looks stunning on the streaming. Now we have arrived at the best movies and TV of the week, and first up is Aki Kaurismäki's Fallen Leaves. If it's not in your theaters, or well, I guess it's not on VOD yet, so in your theaters, then go seek out some of his other films. There's some great ones in there, but he is incredible at capturing kind of a throwback type of vibe that isn't really clear where it's specifically set. It feels modern, but also timeless at the same time. It's about two people kind of connecting in their own misery. All of his movies tend to share some kind of similar identity in the storytelling and the characters that they portray. I really like this one. There's also a dog in this one. If you like dogs, there's a good dog, really good dog in Fallen Leaves. Todd Haynes' May December is out on Netflix in the US only. It's a deliciously controversial, contradictory, disgusting piece of storytelling, piece of narrative, showcasing different kind of facets of human beings, of bad human beings, of the exploitative, of the manipulative. There's just a ton of words that would fit what May December is doing, and my words would all be complimentary. One of the best that I've seen all year. Actually, my second favorite of the whole year, and as you might have been able to tell, I do tend to watch quite a bit. This is amazing. Go check it out. You might hate it, you might love it. Regardless, go see it. It's worth your time. About Dry Grasses. 3 hours and 17 minutes. That's like gonna be a big hurdle for a lot of people to go check it out. Now, should you go check it out? Yes and no. Is slow storytelling for you? It's about a guy who gets placed in a town where he's to teach, but he's actually from a big city. He wants to go back to the big city. He kind of despises the people from the small town because he thinks they're not as intellectually intelligent as he is. They're inferior to him. From that comes a dynamic that he has with another teacher that he ultimately is jealous of or envies, and a relationship or a person that he goes after just because there's a sort of interest from the other guy. And then the story just builds and builds, kind of slow builds. There's not a ton happening. He's accused of tying over from May, December, something in that realm. If that is happening, is never really explicitly told. But through that, we build and build and build so many layers of this character that is incredibly intriguing. I can wholeheartedly recommend it to everyone who, appreciates slower cinema. One of the best films of the year. The Killer, and I wouldn't say this is one of David Fincher's best film. By the way, we talked about which one is his best in a bracket-style video on the Quiet on Set podcast. Go check that out if you want. We also covered this movie very extensively in a spoiler review, and I liked it. I think it has some really compelling parts to it. Technically, it's incredible. Michael Fassbender is great. It's just the story is a bit... Now, The Holdovers is the actual first Christmas movie that I'd recommend this year. I wouldn't call it cozy or heartwarming as some other people have said. Maybe heartwarming in a sense that there's some relationships that form between the people in ways that are very expected of what you can assume the story is going to tell about these three people who are stuck at a school over the holidays. That's that. I don't even want to say more about it. I think it has a great look to itself, a kind of throwback film look, and some pretty good performances. Finally, we have a couple of series to talk about. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is really unexpected in the way that it doesn't really just do a reboot or a remaster, of a game or a show or a movie, just in a longer form in a TV show, but it actually goes a completely different route, explores different sides to characters, and I don't even want to say more than that. Go check it out. I think if you like Scott Pilgrim, you'll actually love this as well. The Curse, now I was lucky enough, or I don't know if I was lucky enough to get to see all of the 10 episodes. I think we're up to episode 6 or something like that for the public at the moment. There's more in store for you, that's all I'll say. But it's so incredibly awkward and unnerving, and I regret binging the whole thing because I was in a state of uncomfortableness, if that's even a word, for a long while after this. It's bizarre. It's got incredible performances from Nathan Field, Emma Stone, and Benny Safdie. It's weird, but it's one of the best shows of the year. Had me really perplexed. Yeah, worth talking about, just to be confused and not really being able to make sense of it. And then finally, Invincible, first half of the second season. The first 4 episodes have dropped. And I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen season 1, but I think it picks up the pace that it had left from season 1, at least in the later episodes of season 2. I think that episode 4 was actually really intriguing and had me hoping, hopefully I can get to see more of this, but apparently the second half of the season isn't releasing until 2024. But hopefully the next rendition of the weekly Movie&TV Roundup won't take until 2024 to make. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you'll be watching and what you've watched this week. Go check out the Quiet on Set podcast. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.